So we have moderating today, we have Dr. Avi Goldfarb, who's the professor of marketing here in University of Toronto, Rotman School of Management. We also have Boris Zimfeld, the director of development at Artez Interactive. We have Shawna Emerson ONeil, the vice president of strategy and business innovation here at AMIA. And we also have Tim Wilson, head of industry for Google Canada. So I'll let them take over and give you a little bit of information about their background and what they're doing, and looking forward to a great discussion. We'll have tons of time for questions, so keep thinking.
Okay. Thanks for coming. Thanks for attending. So I just want to briefly introduce how I think about the big data opportunities, very briefly. And then we'll maybe introduce ourselves one by one. And then we'll get going with Q&A, like my Q&A and then your Q&A. Okay. So I want to start with Erik Brynjolfsson, who's the director of the MIT Center for Digital Business. Compare the impact of this big data revolution on management to what the microscope did for medicine. We can now see more deeply into consumer behavior and competitor behavior, really, than we ever have before. So data-driven decision-making is on the rise, and whether it's the Obama campaign's use of incredible, detailed, large data sets to manage the Get Out the Vote initiative, Epigogics, which uses quantitative analysis to figure out which movie scripts are going to have the biggest box office. Walmart uses data everywhere, but even in their hiring processes. Or the increased use of advanced statistics in professional sports. And there were other examples, but I figured I'd let these guys tell you about those ones. The most successful businesses that I see are those that use data carefully to assess their choices. Okay? Whether that's thinking carefully about causality, running experiments when they can, and repeatedly testing their fundamental assumptions. So at Rotman, to give you a sense of where I'm coming from, we built a new MBA curriculum that's focused on giving students the skills they need to effectively model and interpret data. So I teach a course that's a new core course. I'm a marketing professor, but I teach a new core course called Data, simply. Okay? And I'm looking forward to hearing more from our panelists and from you guys in the audience, your thoughts on and questions on the opportunities and challenges in using data. So before we get to specific questions, maybe introductions around.
Should I start?
You should start.
To the left. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Tim Wilson, and I lead the automotive team at Google Canada in our Toronto office. I've been with Google for just about 2 years, and prior to that, I spent 9 years at Loyalty One. The interesting thing about businesses and careers is they tend to come full circle. And my first internet experience, my first online experience was back in 1996, where I built, with a colleague of mine, a website to take on the auto trader. We had these cool new things called digital cameras, and my job was to go around to dealerships to take pictures of cars and hopefully get them sold on the internet. We were a little bit ahead of our time, but interestingly enough, Trader called us in to do a little consulting gig, and things went from there. I have been deeply ensconced in the web for the last 16 years, and being with Google has opened my eyes to this notion of big data and the implications around big data, which we're going to get to today. But it's a wild, wild west out there, and those who are going to be able to use data to their advantage are going to end up winning, in my view.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Shawna Emerson ONeil, and I work with AMIA. I've been with AMIA for almost 7 years now, and prior to that, I was with Mercer Management Consulting in the field of professional services. I feel like I'm a little bit cheating today because AMIA's business always has been very focused on data. We call it precision customer science, and whether in the context of our coalition loyalty programs, where we've actually built very rich and deep member assets for over 20 years here in Canada with programs like Aeroplan, or more recently with our programs in the UK, our business is all about leveraging data to help our partners make better decisions based on insights from their customers' behavior. We're also, though, with big data, really starting to focus our proprietary consulting services on data as well. So whether it's mobile, social, our ISS products that I'll talk about a little bit later, everything we're focusing on from a loyalty and customer engagement perspective is fueled by data. So I really look forward to the discussion today, and I think we've got some interesting perspectives to share.
Yep. So, hi, my name is Boris Zimfeld. Again, my colleagues here, thank you for having me. here today. I'm representing today Artez Interactive. Artez is providing nonprofits with a platform to manage their events, solicitation, registration, and anything else that is related to the nonprofit world. I've been with Artez almost for about more than a year, like right now, like just about a year and 2 months. Most of my career is IBM. I've started with the internet in 1995, doing some technically freelance development for ISPs, internet service providers, before. And when IBM started getting more seriously into the internet, I've joined as a professional to their internet consulting and services, which eventually became e-business in Canada. After that, I moved to IBM Israel, and from there worked for IBM EMEA for about 5 years, managing e-statements project, which is technically online banking for IBM, for the IBM clients around the world, exposing the accounts receivable systems of IBM to the internet and similar like your daily online banking. With that, I got exposure to old data systems such as IMS databases, flat, structured, converting and enabling web enablement. That was the big thing. That's how the project was actually categorized as, and it all involved data. Now, focusing on data actually became a reality for me a year ago when I joined Artez to try to lead their data team. And one of the things that we'll discuss today is the different issues that nonprofits have today, because nonprofits, although they are nonprofits, they technically, especially the big ones, operate as for-profit organizations. They have marketing, they have solicitation schemes, and what they lack is actually leveraging that data that they collect on the transaction level. So I'm happy to be here, and we'll talk about it soon.
Great. Thanks for those introductions. We've got lots to talk about. So I want to start by thinking about the big picture at some level and thinking about, there's all this data coming in. So it used to be data was scarce and we really had to spend lots of time collecting data, and there were there's companies and organizations that were structured to figure out how to find any piece of data about your customers. Now data's coming in from all sorts of places. And the question is, why is this data valuable for you or your clients? And maybe in answering that, you can give a specific example of a particular client where using that data was useful. So who wants to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Chivalry's not quite dead here. All right.
We'll see what happens after the next 30 minutes.
All right. Okay. So I think at AMIA we think about not just sheer volume of data, because you're right. I think there was a long time where only certain businesses had the privilege of being able to more easily collect data than others, banks, telcos, etc. I think we now live in an environment where any business who is actually making an effort can get their hands on data. I think it's easy to get sidetracked with just volume as opposed to really being thoughtful around what's required, breadth versus depth and variety. So it's easy to get distracted focusing on volume versus what we would call sort of depth or variety or velocity of data. And I think each type of data actually has different applications. So we spend a lot of time working with clients to try to be thoughtful about what it is that they're actually trying to achieve with their data. I think one of the most vivid examples I can bring from an AMIA perspective of how big quantities of data are leveraged is what we call our Intelligent Shopper Solutions platform. It's a big mouthful, so I'll say ISS instead of Intelligent Shopper Solutions. Basically, this is a proprietary platform we've created that we work with leading everyday retailers in markets around the world, as well as consumer packaged goods companies, to really help amass SKU level data at the customer level. So just to give you a sense for the volume at play here, in a typical week for one of these grocery clients, we'll analyze 20 million transactions, say across 1,000 different retail locations, generating about 18 billion rows of data. So that's probably a pretty unique example of depth and breadth at work at the same time. And what that allows us to do is to really bring the concept of customer insight to a whole new level. So for a retailer, for example, they're now equipped to make decisions about assortment and merchandising by understanding how a consumer shops a particular category. They're able to understand which product offering is best for a particular segment of customers. They're able to understand how they should optimize their everyday flyers, going out each week in terms of the product sets that drive the greatest sales lift. And they're able to assess things like how private label brands versus national brands resonate with particular segments. So a whole host of benefits revealed by that type of data set. The beauty of ISS is that it simultaneously has benefits for the consumer packaged goods companies, or CPGs, because those guys, like the microscope, have never been able to see sort of what their data and sort of at the SKU level is doing in a particular retail location. We've just done a bunch of work in the UK with Fairtrade. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with the brand. My daughter, thanks to the grade 6 curriculum, is a big supporter of Fairtrade now. And essentially that brand has driven 20% plus sales lift by leveraging sort of multi-contact and multi-channel strategies within a retail location. So looking at social and online and direct mail, sort of entrance gateways, in-store promotions. And they're actually able to track at the individual location basis how their SKUs are moving through a particular category. So, that CPG interest in the data helps the retailer monetize the data, supporting their overall loyalty objectives, and the ecosystem sort of works beautifully together. So I think that's just sort of a nice, tangible example of the types of benefits that data set creates.
Thanks.
Sure, I'll go.
Okay.
So I'm going to give an automotive example in a bit, but really for us, the value for the clients is threefold. One is from a targeting standpoint. The next one is from a measurement standpoint. And the third one I will call instantaneous testing abilities. So if you look at the massive amount of data that a Honda or a GM or a Ford has at their fingertips, they have the ability through Google search, for example, to target very specifically who they want to send which ad to. So if they want somebody who's looking for a Silverado versus a Honda CR-V, they can target an ad specifically to that individual, because Google search, as I'm sure a lot of you in this room have used, is a database of intentions. When you go to use Google, you are typing in something because you have an intention to find out more information about a product or buying a service. Google uses that data, the advertisers use the data to target their message very, very specifically. That is something that the massive amounts of data that our advertisers have available to us get used. Very, very targeted message. Not spray it and pray it like we spray it and pray like we used to say. It's very, very targeted.
So, building on that, I want to think about new kinds of data coming online, right? So, you heard some examples. So, you think about what new kinds of data you guys have already started using in your company, and talk about how they're useful and maybe some of the difficulties in getting clients to adopt these new data systems. So, you want to start?
I'll start. Sure.
Okay.
So two key areas that we're focused on. One probably is something that's fairly well known. If you go back 10 or 15 years into the types of targeting that you could do on websites, it was very publisher driven. So it was age, demographics. Now what we're finding, it's more behavioral. And it's actually coming from the advertiser as well, because we can create and deliver what's called lookalike or similar audiences across our network of sites or across what the advertiser is looking for, to try and find people that are like the people that you want, that you know are good customers of yours. And if you look at behavioral, if you look at psychographic, if you look at a much broader set of targeting criteria about the individual based on what the advertiser sees as their key customer, you're going to get much better success, much better conversion. So behavioral targeting is something that we're talking to our advertisers a lot. The second one is what I will call attribution, or attribution modeling. We talk a lot with our advertisers, especially my automotive advertisers, about last click conversion and how that is not the most important click in the life cycle of the customer journey. You need to be able to attribute clicks along the way, because somebody who's looking for a car may type in as their first query, and I know this for a fact because it is the most popular query, automotive query on Google, new car. I know it's hard to believe. That is the most popular query. It couldn't get any more general than that. Wow. But that's what people put in. That is about as top of the funnel as you're going to get. I have no idea what that person is going to end up doing when they type in new car. So if I look at how many clicks it took them to get to the RAV4, or how many clicks it took them to get a used car, I am attributing value every step of the way. One click is not the journey. There might have been 4, there might have been 12, who knows? That is something that we are trying very hard to work with our automotive, in fact, all of our advertisers. And the challenge is believing in what the value is for every other click but the last click. And who comes up with the model, who comes up with that value calculation, who signs off on it. And therefore, where does my investment go in relation to a general keyword versus a brand keyword? Those are ongoing discussions that we have with our advertisers every single day. And the challenge is being able to analyze on the back end as well, and finding people who understand what the back end metrics are saying that will inform a marketing spend decision.
Great.
So I'm going to build on your car analogy.
Please.
One of the things that we in Loyalty have for years rewarded is actual behavior and transaction, which a lot of people say is the holy grail of understanding what customers will do. It's what they did last time and last week and yesterday. What we're learning, though, is it's important not to just capture the transaction or behavioral data, but the points of interaction around that transaction. So in your car analogy, how often does a person buy a car? I mean, my husband maybe differently, but most people every 5, 6, 7 years. How often maybe, though, do you go for a test drive or sort of look for information about a car? If you are to capture those interactions in between points of purchase, again, there's great value in understanding, is a person actually in the consideration set for purchasing a car? So outside of automotive, we're looking at things like awarding miles and encouraging data capture for referring products to a friend, requesting a quote for home insurance, really trying to understand what consideration mind space the consumer is in prior to an actual transaction. The other thing that we're increasingly trying to do is to segment, again, the transactional data from a segmentation perspective with other layers of data. So social is a good example here. We're encouraging our members to link their Twitter or their Facebook profiles to their member profile in Aeroplan or Nectar. And when we look at segmentation, it's not just the customers who are actually voting with their purchases and doing things from a behavioral perspective. We often find that our segments who are very influential from a social point of view. So if someone is talking about a great experience they've had with an Aeroplan partner or a great travel redemption that they've had, those people can in some ways be as valuable as the guy who spent a ton of money on your product. I think the last thing that I'd highlight is we're increasingly trying to create our own proprietary data set, so using things like member panels. A great example of this is the AdPoints business we've just launched in the UK. And AdPoints is an online sort of media viewing tool that rewards people for watching ads and providing interactive feedback. And the idea there is to integrate data from the transaction behavior that goes on in the retail location with the same guy who has watched a particular ad to sort of say, what models and patterns can we see between people who watch particular ads, purchase particular products, and sort of the next generation of that will be actually targeting particular advertisements based on proprietary technology. So imagine your family room. You've got your smartphone, your iPhone out, or your iPad out. Two families are watching the same Hockey Night in Canada hockey game, and Tim will get a different ad than Shawna because of the website that he was surfing while the hockey game was on. So a really neat way of marrying different data sets to come up with a richer view of the customer.
Okay. So in terms of new types of data that we introduced recently, like as I mentioned, we introduced Facebook Canvas. It's kind of like an addition to the previous feature that we had, which is sign up before you sign up as a donor, like connect your Facebook ID to the RTS platform. Therefore, every time you go in, especially for that particular organization, you're going to be recognized automatically, and then you're not going to have to add your email, like address and contact information before you actually make that donation. Now, the thing is we need to remember about the nonprofits is that their customers are not there to gain anything tangible. Right? It's a warm, fuzzy feeling that you get just before, well, I need to donate, or it's a friend of mine who's going to cycle for cancer, so I'm going to go and donate. But that's little 2 seconds, 2 to 5 seconds of clicking the button and submitting the transaction, that's where it's very important for us to minimize the time that the people spend on that on the actual donation page until the donation is actually being made. So allowing quicker identification of the person, actually tying it to previous type of donations also leads to what I mentioned before, is analyzing the previous donations and understanding maybe we can customize the donation amounts. Another thing is because we are actually collecting the postal codes and so forth with the different localization features that are currently available almost on any platform, we can also see what other people from a region or an area donated previously and maybe target the donation page based on the region if we don't have any previous information about this particular person. That's kind of leads to the next question that we're going to discuss, but it's definitely there. The information is there. It's all about connecting it and making sense out of it.
So okay. I'll jump in right there and have you answer the next question.
No problem.
They were prepped, which is new kinds of data. What kind of new kinds of data do you see coming online soon? So we'll start.
Yeah, we'll start there.
Let us in there. Okay.
Well, new kinds of data that comes in, it's actually aggregating the data that is currently already available and integrating third-party solutions to analyze it in a more strategic way. For example, when I mentioned postal codes, I consulted a bank back in Israel. One of the things they did is also identify the location of their customers geographically, so that they used GIS as the tool to map up the location of their customers, so that they'll know where to position their branches. Maybe close one branch and move and open another branch closer to where their clients currently are. Same thing can be done with donations, right? This is an excellent example of understanding where should we target more. Okay, I know that this neighborhood particular is the big donors for that particular cause. Maybe we should direct other nonprofits in the same arena. Let's say if it's cancer research, direct them towards that area because maybe that area is more susceptible to that particular cause. Maybe there is more cases, God forbid, or that it's really making that area to donate more for that particular cause. So understanding the different causes and directing our clients to the right areas and where to solicit. Let's continue.
Let's keep going.
Sure.
Shawna?
I think, and Gord, you can correct me if this is wrong, but I think a lot of our clients on the proprietary side of the business are really distracted by the noise of social and mobile and location-based and what does this all mean. I think a lot of the work that we're doing there is trying to help the clients understand not how to sort of throw everything in the garbage that they've done to date, but really to complement their existing loyalty and marketing practices with these new data streams. So a great example of some work we've just recently completed in the U.S. So we had a hotel co-brand card issuer, and they were losing a ton of market share to American Express cards in on-property dining because everyone who's traveling on business pulls out an Amex card and that's how they pay. What we did with this issuer is we had sort of them link their cardholders link to their cards to their Facebook profiles, and when they then were sitting in their hotel, having a drink or sitting in their hotel room checking their email before dinner and checked into Facebook, they would receive a location-based offer to go dine in that hotel's restaurant. And we drove over a 30% share increase of that product when in those properties using that. So I think the whole advent of location-based offers, mobile, social, all coming together, complementing the transaction data is something that we see as a huge opportunity if leveraged properly going forward.
Great. So just to add something there, so I've heard 5 things that are on the same theme. Just in case you're not on the same theme, I'm going to go in right here, which is that one of the opportunities that was really highlighted in what Shawna just said, but throughout, is that data is great in combination with other data. Mm-hmm. So treating each of your data streams separately, like the opportunities that all of you have really discussed are about taking one data stream, mixing it with another data stream, and then generating a new insight. And I think in helping your company just make decisions, better decisions. Mm-hmm. And the idea that, yes, there's mobile and social coming on, and they're very exciting. They are very exciting. There's all sorts of opportunities there. But the opportunities are really about combining with your old data as opposed to throwing out the sort of existing data stream. So I don't know if you were going to say something along those lines.
Yeah, no, well, I was going to talk about geo, but I think everyone knows about that. I'm actually going to turn it a little bit from an agency perspective, because the two big things that are coming down the pipe from a Google perspective are this notion of programmatic buying. So I don't know how many of you in the audience are online folks, but we have trading desks or agency trading desks that are going to demand-side platforms looking for, give me all of these types of impressions, back to my behavioral targeting before. I don't care where they are. I don't care what site they're on, so it doesn't matter if they're on Globe and Mail or partypoker.net. I want these customers. And we are seeing more and more of that massive amount of data being leveraged and used to better target and better get the insights and better get the customers that we're looking for. Google's also very focused on disrupting things. So I'm not going to talk about Google Glass. I'm not going to talk about self-driver cars. I am going to ask a little audience participation. How many of you have been to YouTube in the last week? Put up your hands, pretty much everybody. Now, when you went to see your video, did you see an ad that you could skip? Put up your hand. That's called TrueView. And it is a new technology that we've introduced in the last 6 months. And it is throwing the advertising community on its head, because an advertiser only pays for that ad when you as a consumer watch 30 seconds. You can skip it after 5, which the advertiser doesn't pay for. 5 seconds they get for free. They only pay when you watch it for 30 seconds. And what that is doing to the advertising community is saying, I've got all this data. I know exactly how many people are watching my ads. I can turn that back into an ROI to my advertiser. That is really exciting. That is something that I am interested in. And that data leads to an incredible amount of insights and allows them to make better and more informed decisions.
Great. Okay, so this is all about opportunities in data, but there's another side to this story, which is as from the company side, we're always excited about the things that you can do with data. And me, as a statistician, I'm thinking, wow, there's all these amazing opportunities. Look at the things I can do with data. But there's another side to it, which is there's aspects of data that are kind of creepy. And the ability to link your social profile with your mobile profile, with everything you've bought, and and everywhere you go through through the GPS on your phone can be seen as creepy for a variety of reasons. So the question is, given these opportunities in data and the benefits you can have to your clients and your customers in using data, how do you manage the client's concerns, and particularly their customers' concerns with privacy, as you bring these new data sources online? So who wants to go first?
I'll start.
Okay.
So let me start with our commercial thinking about it, then I'll get into the sort of the privacy and sort of the regulatory concerns. We think about a fundamental consumer principle called reciprocity. And AMIA, through its coalition businesses throughout the year, has been sort of in a privileged position in that we have these unique membership institutions where people join. And over the years, they've grown to know and trust that by providing us with visibility to their data and their behavior and what they like and what they don't like, we're going to be delivering exceptional value back. And so we took that core principle from our legacy business, and we've tried to roll it out through our entire footprint of proprietary ISS, new products and services, to say that fundamentally, a consumer is only going to engage if that exchange is a fair one and what they're giving you access to is treated with respect and transparency and trust. So that's really the commercial principle. Building upon that, we've created, and it sounds kind of quirky, but this global policy called TACT, which stands for transparency, it's my test here, transparency, added value, control for the consumer over their data, and trust. And essentially, those sets of values are rolled out to each and every AMIA employee around the globe, and it's something that we actively engage with our clients in terms of saying, it's these principles and practices and policies and values, frankly, that you should feel comfortable with and trusting, us with your data and your clients' data. The other thing I'll quickly mention, because we've got a 10-minute warning here, is that we're actively engaging with both market regulatory bodies and sort of government bodies throughout the world, because we believe that there's going to be more and more attention paid to this topic as sort of big data explodes in a variety of categories and industries. And we think there's really an opportunity to be a leader to make sure that data is used, and in my words, sort of for good, not evil. And we have a little saying internally at AMIA that this is a topic where we want to be on the side of God and the angels in terms of how data is actually used for creating consumer good.
We're fairly scrutinized as an organization. But the bottom line is our users come first. They always have, they always will. And if we do not protect privacy, if we do not respect their privacy, we will not have a business. We have a number of policies in place where you can opt out of receiving any ads whatsoever on Google. You have the ability to go into your ad preferences. If you type in google.com/ad preferences, you can say, I don't want to receive these types of ads. I want to ban this advertiser. I don't ever want to see an ad from this advertiser. You control your experience. And that is the way that Google has viewed from 14 years ago to today, and for the next, hopefully, 400 years that they're around. The user comes first. And we are privileged to be able to have a conversation with those users as they choose, as they go through our database of intentions. We need to respect that. And at any point, if we don't, we will lose their trust and they will go elsewhere. Nothing is more important to us.
I'm going to keep it simple. Technically, we are bound by government rules because we are dealing with nonprofits. So shifting full identities and storing them in locations outside of North America is a no-no. Primarily, it's not a big issue. We seldom get any privacy concerns from our clients.
Great.
Good.
Thank you. So with that, let's open it up to questions from the floor.